What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, you may have heard me talk about how USAID was funneling all this money out to NGOs and blah, 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 and they were funneling that back around to Democrat activists and blah, and all this other nonsense. You might be thinking, well, how come nobody's been arrested for that? Well, here we go, folks. USAID official, 3 execs plead guilty in bribery scheme with over $550 million in contracts. Oh yeah, here we go, folks. Once again, it takes time. The DOJ, they got to come in, they got to figure all this stuff out. Elon Musk had to go through USAID and rip that baby apart, tear it down to almost nothing. Then the DOJ had to come in, build evidence, so this takes some time. We got our first case right here. Let's get into it, y'all. A United States Agency of International Development official, as well as 3 corporate executives, have pled guilty in a decades-long bribery scheme connected to over $550 million in contracts. According to a press release from the Department of Justice, 4 men pled guilty to the charges of being part of the bribery scheme. The USAID official in the case was Roderick Watson, 57, of Maryland, who was a contracting officer and pled guilty to bribery of a public official. Walter Barnes, 46, of Maryland, Darrell Britt, 64, of Florida, and Paul Young, 62, of Maryland, all pled guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery of a public official, while Barnes also pled guilty to securities fraud. Fascinating, that is. Barnes and Britt were the owners of PM Consulting Group, LLC, doing business as Vistant, as well as Aprio, Inc., respectively, while Young was a subcontractor for both Vistant and Aprio. Both firms were certified businesses with the Small Business Administration contracting program. Watson exploited his position at USAID to line his pocket with bribes in exchange for more than $550 million in contracts, while he helped 3 company owners and presidents bypass the fair bidding process. He was showered with cash and lavish gifts, said Chief Guy Fiacco of IRS Criminal Investigation. So, that's all fascinating, folks. Once again, I can't wait to see how many more bribery schemes we uncover from this whole USAID thing. Because, the USAID budget was like $46 or $43 billion. And that's a small section. I wonder how many people were steering contracts to scrape a little bit off of the top. I just can't wait for all this stuff to come out, y'all. Like, once again, and I just love how the left and the corporate press, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're gnashing their teeth about Elon Musk going through and taking down the ivory tower that was USAID. And their total defense of USAID is absurd, right? When they have no idea what was actually going on behind the scenes. They want to tell you and make you believe that, the Trump administration is killing people overseas. Because, Elon Musk took away humanitarian aid. What? That's not true, is it? And we've uncovered that several times, in several different videos. We've brought that to light, that no humanitarian assistance has been stopped. Sure, certain programs were stopped that looked fishy. Let's investigate, and come to find out, we start finding bribery schemes all over the place. According to court documents cited by the DOJ, while Watson was working as a contracting officer for USAID in 2013, he agreed with Britt to receive bribes so that contracts would be awarded to Britt's company, Aprio. Aprio could access lucrative federal contracting opportunities through set-asides and sole source contracts exclusively available to eligible contractors without a competitive bid process, the DOJ said. So basically what that sounds like to me is they were eliminating any competition at all. This guy, he gave them exclusive contracting rights to these bids, so this guy could charge whatever the hell he wanted to. There was no bidding process. Bidding is meant to promote competition, so we get the better price, right? So we don't have to pay so much. Well, this guy, because there's no competition, could just charge whatever the hell he wanted to. So I'm sure he was gouging that price through the freaking roof. I can just imagine that. I don't have evidence of this, But, you know, if you were the sole contractor and there was no bidding process and you could charge whatever the hell you want because it's the government paying for it, and, you know, no one person pays for this. It's the sole collective of the United States taxpayer that has to pay for this. What do you do in that situation? We already know the government gets overcharged for just about everything. So, you know, it's not too far outside of reality to think that this guy was massively overcharging the government. Vistant was a subcontractor to Aprio on one of the contracts awarded through Watson's influence, the DOJ said in a press release. After Aprio became ineligible for the SBA 8 program and the scheme changed so that Vistant became the prime contractor with USAID and Aprio was the subcontractor of contracts awarded by Watson between the years of 2018 and 2022. Britt and Barnes paid bribes to Watson that were often concealed by passing them through Young, who was the president of another subcontractor to Aprio and Vistant, the DOJ added. Bribes such as cash, laptops, NBA game tickets, down payments on homes, cell phones, as well as jobs for relatives were all bribes given to Watson, which were valued at over $1 million in the scheme. Watson would then make a variety of actions in order to get contracts awarded to Aprio as well as Vistant. Watson is facing 15 years in prison. Young, Britt, as well as Barnes are all facing 5 years in prison. So good. Great. Go after all these people. And once again, I can't wait to see how many other of these bribery schemes are going to be uncovered by the DOJ through Elon Musk going through and knocking out the legs out from USAID and just completely obliterating that money laundering scheme that was masquerading as foreign aid, for crying out loud. We know some of those programs, you know, not all of that was illegal, but most of it was left-wing, ideologically driven. And, you know, the taxpayers just don't need to be paying for ideology, for goodness sakes. You know, find all the bribery schemes and find all the malfeasance we can find, sure, but I'm still glad that we are not funding left-wing ideology all around the world, for goodness sakes, right? Like, I don't care. You know, if you want to fund your left-wing ideology, go right ahead. You just don't use taxpayer dollars to do so. Right? If you do want to use taxpayer dollars, make sure it's in like California or somewhere where it's overwhelmingly liberal. So if you guys want to pay that in, but don't force conservatives to pay for your ideology. And that's a problem with most institutions being captured by the left in this country because they think that everybody agrees with them because they're the highly educated white liberal. And guess what? If you don't agree, you're just an idiot redneck conservative and you don't matter, right? We're going to force our ideology onto you. That's how these people think, folks. That is exactly how these people think. There's been studies that have found exactly that. And it's all insane if you ask me. You know, personally, I don't think we should be funding foreign development, for goodness sakes, like we just talked about the other day of the USADF, I think it was, the African Development Foundation, the United States African Development Foundation, I believe that's what it was called. You know, admonish me down in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but basically what they did is they funneled money into these African companies. They invested in these companies, and then these companies invested into like places like ActBlue, and it just went right back into Democrats' pocket. You know, they would scrape a little bit off the top and then send that money right back to the United States, which is absurd, folks. And that was a lot of what, you know, USADF was a subsidiary, basically, of USAID. It did the same thing. It was just centrally focused on Africa. Right? Well, we don't need U.S. taxpayer dollars going to fund companies in Africa for economic development purposes, for goodness sakes, right? Like, we don't need to be doing that. If private companies want to do that, go right ahead. Don't do this type of stuff with taxpayer dollars. That's what I'm saying, especially when we're spending in a $1.8 trillion deficit. That's the most frustrating part about this, right? Like, you know, as Americans, we're real compassionate. We're really generous
when it comes to money. Like, if we have extra money, we donate to charities, blah, 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 right? Which I don't mind doing any of these things. I don't mind the United States giving money. If they want to develop in economics over there, right, look, go right ahead, okay, if we have the extra money. But when we're spending in a deficit, that is a terrible idea. It's fiscally irresponsible, and it should be illegal to spend money that doesn't have anything to do with the United States when we're spending that money in a deficit. That's a major problem, folks. Major problem. And it's going to bankrupt and destroy this country. That's one reason why I always say Democrats just don't care about this country at all and would like to see it crumble and burn to the ground because of things like this. They're more worried about funding African nations and foreign countries and their ideology than they are about fixing our own checkbook, for goodness sakes. But once again, folks, I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Hooray for Elon Musk and the DOJ and USAID falling, for goodness sakes, or at least that's what I think. Let me know what you think. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here and you liked what you heard. Share this video if you don't mind, anywhere and everywhere you can. That's the best way to help me out. And if you also could, I would be deeply appreciative if you could look right below the video and click that join button. Sign up, become a member, help me deliver the news to you guys. So y'all do all that. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.